And the funny thing about Scott is, for the first several days, like first week or so, we couldn't find anything wrong with this guy. I mean, he was just the all-American boy, college student. He's got the baby on the way. He's got the pretty wife. He's belongs to the country club. He's got all these things going. He's got this circle of friends, and just nobody had a bad word to say about him until Amber came forward.
We almost like hit a lull in the investigation right at the end of December, beginning of January. And we were in the office and we had a tip line up 24 hours a day. And I was standing behind one of our clerks, Bev, and she was typing and I was reading over her shoulder and she's typing, Scott Peterson's my boyfriend. You know, I met him on November 20th and he calls me every day and I like, Bev, is that lady on the phone? And she said, yeah. And so I took the phone from her and it was a gal. She says her name was Amber Frey and she said she's dating Scott Peterson and that's her boyfriend. And I said, does he know you're calling? And she said, no. I said, well, don't tell him.
And Al got a couple more tidbits from her and said, we're on our way. Don't go anywhere. And she said, yeah, I'll wait for you guys. So he grabs me. We go into the sergeant's office and we tell Al Carter, we've got this lead down in Fresno. And Al said, go, just don't tell anybody about it.
Detective Buehler and I let our sergeant and Detective Grogan know where we're going, and we drove straight to her house and met with her and her friend, Sean Sibley, that had introduced Scott to Amber. And from there, she told us a story that was pretty incredible.
Because we're trying to keep kind of a clamp on details like this because we don't want it getting out. We get to Amber's place and she's got her friend Sean Sibley there with her. And Sean is Amber's friend who had introduced Scott to Amber. Sean had been at a pest convention, for agricultural pest convention down in Anaheim, I think in like November or something like that, or October. And she had met Scott down there along with other people that were involved in fertilizer and pest things for agriculture. And Scott had projected himself at this convention that he was single and he was looking for a girlfriend and things like that. And Sean started talking to him. She was engaged, so she wasn't interested in him. And she said, she thought of Amber and she, I got this friend, she's really nice, but, don't break her heart, don't treat her like garbage. And Scott has he's very engaging, he's charming and things like that. And so he ends up contacting Amber, they start dating. And when we get down to Amber's place, she starts telling us about how he started romancing her from the start by bringing her roses. And he had strawberries and champagne in his room at the Sheraton or the Radisson, whatever he was staying at.
November 20th. And Scott said he was not married. It was a blind date. Scott asked Amber, hey, do you mind coming up to my room? So I can clean up and change and go to dinner. And so she agreed and he wooed her. And then they went to dinner and that's their dating relationship started right then on November 20th.
And it just kind of took off from there. He told her that he lived in Sacramento, but his office was in Modesto and he traveled a lot and fed her these stories about overseas travel. And part of it was probably true, but not all of it. And he mentioned to her that he was going to be having a lot of travel during the holidays and through January, but he was going to be available for a lot more time together after the end of January. And she is just digging all this because she's looking for a good guy. She's a single mother. I think her daughter was about 2 years old at the time. And Scott was very attentive with her daughter and all that. And Amber was interesting to talk to because I got the impression she didn't think that we would believe her on this. And so she had wine corks they'd had bottles of wine at dinner, and she had programs from events they had gone to and things like this. And so she's showing us all these items that confirm that they had been going to dinner and doing all these different things. And we really had no reason to disbelieve her at this point. Sean Sibley, we interviewed them separately, recorded, of course, and she provided the same information, but not with as much detail as Amber did. And then what we found out throughout all this is Amber didn't watch television. And Fresno was not in the Sacramento market for media coverage. So at the beginning, before the news coverage got giant, she wouldn't have caught it anyway because she wasn't watching TV. But a friend of hers who was a Fresno cop, he'd caught the coverage, and he had remembered that she was dating a guy named Scott Peterson. And so he had told her that you probably ought to get a hold of these Modesto cops. The guy you're dating could be the same guy that's involved in this missing thing. And so that's why she finally called us. And when we finished up with the interview, we had pretty much all the information we need. At that time, we were going to go eat lunch. So we asked them if Sean and Amber wanted to go with us. We figured, well, if we're eating and they're eating with us, they might come up with some other things that we remember, and we can jot those down too. Before we went to the restaurant, Amber comes out with this little jewel out of left field, totally unexpected. And she goes, "Should you be interested in some pictures?" And I'm thinking, well, what? And she said, well, of Scott and I. It's like, yeah, we'd probably be interested in those. And so we go to Rite Aid or CVS, Walgreens, I don't remember which it was. And she gives a claim ticket to the gal behind the counter, and she comes out with this envelope that's got the double pictures. So it's got photo prints, but doubles. And, this is kind of before cell phone camera stuff was out there. And we open these things up, and here they are. Scott in the tuxedo, Amber in the red dress. Just a whole slew of these pictures. Them sitting on the couch. He's whispering in her ear, all this ridiculousness. And these are just epic. Anybody who's probably watching this probably saw those pictures. And it's kind of locked in at that time that she wasn't full of, baloney. She was telling the truth. And we said, yeah, we'll take these pictures. That'll be good.
As soon as we saw the photo of him at the Christmas party with Amber, and after interviewing Amber, and she's telling us all these stories and gifts and cards and things, and they're all coming from Scott's shop. And the fact that she even told us the first day that Scott had told her on December 9th that he lied to her originally when he said he wasn't married, and he broke down and he was sobbing, and she was consoling him, and he had said he lost his wife and this was going to be the first holiday without her.